And all right, once again, I want to welcome everyone to the Sacramento Promise Zone Mind, Body, and Spirit Health Series. We are really excited that session number one is going to be about adverse childhood experiences, both awareness and resiliency. We have a wonderful presenter who I won't steal Alice's thunder by mentioning her name right now, but we have a wonderful presenter from Resilient Sacramento, and we are excited to get started in the first session. And I'm saying first session because this will be a series that will take place every other month on the second Friday of that particular month, the same time, 9:30 to 10 o'clock. There'll be some amazing topics, so please mark your calendars and come on back for that. My name is Julius Austin. I am the Sacramento Promise Zone coordinator. The lead agency for the Sacramento Promise Zone is SHRA. And we'd love for you to follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Sac Promise Zone. Also, you can find out more information about the Promise Zone at www.sacramentopromisezone.org. I mentioned that Tyrone Roger Williams is joining us today. He is the director of the Promise Zone, so I direct the daily operations of the zone under his ultimate leadership. And the leader of SHRA is Lachelle Dozier. Want to really dive in, but before we do, want to share some housekeeping. As I mentioned, the session will be recorded. It also will be aired simultaneously on Facebook Live. So we ask that everyone please remain muted throughout the presentation, but don't worry about being muted because you still have a great opportunity to ask any questions of the presenters in the chat box, and I'll relay any questions that you might have to the presenters, both throughout the presentation, but dominantly during our question and answer session. Also, closed caption is available. So you can click, it should automatically start for you, but you can also click the CC icon to bring up closed captioning if you would like to take advantage of that. All right, we have a really simple agenda for a really complex issue or topic. We're just going to have this welcome here from me, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Alice Vestager from Samuel Merritt University to do an introduction of herself and of our presenter. And then we'll have our presentation, and then we'll have a question and answer session. So with that being said, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Alice Vestager.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Julius. So exciting to have you join us this morning for our kickoff. I know several of you are coming from near and far, and wherever you're coming from, you're making history today because this is the first in our series. Samuel Merritt's delighted to be partnering with the Promise Zone to bring this series to our region and beyond, because with the COVID disruption and our lives pivoting to online, we have an opportunity to share this education in unique ways. And you didn't log on to hear me. So I just want to say that Samuel Merritt is a proud partner of the Promise Zone, and it does indeed take a village of people to change the health dynamics, the economic dynamics of our region's citizens. So we're happy to be part of it. We're a health professions university, and we're headquartered in Oakland, California, but we have a learning center in Sacramento as well as Fresno. We have a campus. And without further ado, I want to get right over to our feature kickoff presenter. We are so lucky to have her this morning. She's a pioneer in ACEs and ACEs education. Many of you on our webinar this morning have heard her or seen her. She has taught me everything I know about ACEs. And without further ado, I don't want to take any more time. I want to turn it over to Wendy Scala, our presenter for this morning. Wendy?
I'm so honored, Alice, to be here. And I'm honored, Julius, for having your organization invite me for your kickoff for the ACEs. As you know, ACEs is very important in our community right now. And you're going to learn why, and you can also learn how you can get involved. The first thing we'd like to do, though, is just do a quick little poll. I think that Julius, can you put up the poll?
Yes, I've launched the poll and I would love for everyone to answer just a simple one question poll. So please chime in. We just want to see who knows their ACE or resiliency score. All right,
Wow, this is really
almost
interesting.
complete. We got a few more folks who might want to chime in. All right, we'll give it 30 more seconds. Maybe 15 seconds. I think maybe
I
we've got.
think that's really good. I really like it that I'm talking to a new audience, that about 63% of you don't know what your ACE score is. And, I think that that's real interesting. And about 38% know their ACE score, but most people don't know about their resilience score. So I didn't want you to walk into this thinking that the ACE was the end all, that resilience is really the place that we're going to end up after this, this conversation. So, okay, thank you very much, Julius. You can take that down.
All right, it should be all down now.
Okay, great, super. I'm still seeing it on my
Probably because you're the co-host, so you can see
okay,
it. But
all righty,
hopefully,
super.
no
I'll
one
get rid
else
of
can
it
see
from
it.
my end. Like I said, one thing that I want to talk about is the fact that I'm only going to be touching on the tip of the iceberg. That really, ACEs is so has grown so much since the study came out in 1998. So really, I just want to basically get you interested in ACEs and get you on your way. So that's the thing that I think is going to be so wonderful about this presentation, is hopefully I can get your interest. So a lot of people ask me, so how did I learn about ACEs and resiliency? And it's kind of an interesting story. I'd been a nurse for about 30 years. I was in the military with 7 deployments in support of Operation Enduring and Iraqi Freedom. I had been a life flight helicopter nurse at Stanford, and I was at a point in my career that I really wanted to step back from the bedside care of nursing. So I took a job as the injury prevention coordinator for trauma services at Kaiser South Sacramento, their very first trauma center. And I thought, oh, I'm going to be teaching people how not to fall. I'm going to be, teaching people how to put their seatbelts on, how to put children in their car seats. What I didn't know was that I would be tasked with starting a injury prevention program that really focused on violently injured youth between the ages of 15 and 27. At that time, it was projected that we would have about 900 kids a year. So what we did is we developed the Sacramento Violence Intervention Program in collaboration with WellSpace Health. We worked together to really readdress re-injury and retaliation of the violence in the community. It was based on a caught in the crossfire model, and it was one of the founding partners of the national network of hospital-based violence intervention programs. It was really successful at the time in preventing re-injury in the community, and we could boast that we were 98% successful. And in the years that we started the program, for the first time in 10 years, we did not have a murder on Mack Road. So that was a pretty big thing to look at. But what we had to say is, why were the youth coming in shot, stabbed, or almost assaulted to death in the first place? And that's when I found out about ACEs and traumatized communities. Childhood experiences, or ACEs, is really a science that includes 5 parts. And it was really interesting to learn that the CDC and Kaiser Permanente did the first ACE study. That's the epidemiology of childhood adversity, or how many people experience different types of childhood trauma, to what degree, and what happens as a result. Then we looked at toxic stress and how toxic stress from childhood experiences damages children's developing brains and adults' brains. And then how toxic stress from ACEs affects our short and long-term health. We'll talk a little bit more about that. How we pass this toxic stress and thus ACEs from generation to generation in our genes and from mother to fetus also was studied in that as part of the ACEs science. And finally, how resilience research is showing that our brains are plastic and our bodies can heal through implementing trauma informed and resilience building practices based on ACEs science. This basic knowledge is fueling an ACEs movement, which now has launched hundreds of pediatricians integrating ACEs science, hundreds of schools, dozens of juvenile detention centers, including ours in Sacramento, more than a dozen states whose legislatures have passed everything from resolutions acknowledging the importance of ACEs and trauma informed practices. So, this is basically really the foundation, the 5 parts of ACEs, parts of ACE science. The first thing, the epidemiology of childhood adversity wanted to look at, ACEs measured 10 types of childhood trauma. We're most familiar with the 5 usual suspects: abuse and neglect, and also the 5 household dysfunctions that, depending on the population you're serving, many people consider normal because they're so common. Subsequently, ACEs surveys included other types of childhood adversity, such as racism, sexism, bullying, witnessing violence outside the home, and living in an unsafe neighborhood. And the ACE study had 5 major results. The first one was childhood trauma is extraordinarily common. Nearly 2/3 of the 17,000 mostly white college educated people with jobs and great health care in the Kaiser system experienced at least one type of serious and chronic childhood adversity. 12% had 4 or more. And 2, the next thing that the results showed, there's an unmistakable link between adverse experiences in childhood and adult onset of chronic disease, mental illness, violence, and being a victim of violence. So the percent of ACEs that contributed to these things, I just like to say suicidality, 50%, 58%, alcoholism, 65%. So that third finding, ACEs contribute to most of our major chronic health, mental health, economic health, and social health issues. And the fourth finding, the ACEs study found that it didn't matter what the type of ACEs were. An ACE score of 4 that included divorce, physical abuse, an incarcerated family member, and a depressed family member had the same statistical health consequences as an ACE score of 4 that included living with an alcoholic, verbal abuse, emotional neglect, and physical neglect. So, what about Sacramento? How do we stack up here in Sacramento? We have the data now. The ACE data is included in screening. So we know that in Sacramento County, 19% of all households report 4 or more ACEs. So that puts almost 20% of our Sacramento population at risk for adverse health consequences. And also at about 48% had at least one ACE. So you can see how common ACEs is if at half our households in Sacramento had one ACE and 20% had 4 or more. 4 is that cutoff where physical conditions start to be influenced. Since the ACE study was first published in 1998, the ACE community has expanded ACEs to include more than the original 10 ACEs that were originally studied by integrating other ACEs, including those that happen outside of our workplaces, systems, and community. And you can see in this representation of the tree on the top of above the ground, the adverse childhood experiences, maternal depression, emotional abuse, mental illness, divorce, has been coupled now with adverse community environments. And I think that that's where a lot of us are doing our work out in the community in poor housing and quality and affordability. I mean, that's right up the alley of many people. Community disruption, discrimination, and poverty. All these things are things that we normally don't look at, but they are now being included in the ACE work. So why does ACEs cause so much damage? This is the second part of the ACE science. What happens to your brain when you have ACEs or have been exposed to ACEs? Well, first of all, we all need positive stress to thrive. But life has its ups and downs and comes with tolerable stress, the kind that's temporary and where you often are helped to recover. But too many children and adults experience toxic stress, extreme, frequent, or extended activation of the body's stress response without the buffering presence of a supportive adult. This long term stress, the kind that comes from living with physical and verbal abusive alcoholic parent, for example, damages the function and the structure of a kid's brain. Toxic stress floods the brain with stress hormones. When a kid's in fight, flight, or freeze mode because of those stress hormones, their thinking brain is offline and doesn't develop as it should. Kids experiencing trauma act out. They can't focus, they can't sit still, or they withdraw, fight, flight, or freeze. That's a normal and expected response to trauma, so they can't learn. Their schools often respond by suspending or expelling them, which further traumatizes them. And I know that many of you are aware that Elk Grove School District is really working on their youth of color who have been suspended, and they're working on getting those rates down. When children get older, they cope by drinking, overeating, doing drugs, smoking, as well as overachieving or engaging in thrill sports. We might think that's good, but it also can be dangerous. Without intervention, these coping behaviors may continue through their adult lives. To them, these are solutions, they're not problems. Nicotine reduces anxiety, food soothes. Some drugs, such as meth, are antidepressants. So telling someone how bad smoking is for them isn't likely to make much of an impression. The fifth finding, staying in the red alert like being in toxic stress, puts a lot of wear and tear on the body. So even if people haven't smoked or become obese, their risk of heart disease and diabetes increases, as do autoimmune diseases. This is the third part of the ACEs science. What happens to our bodies when we live with toxic stress for years? If you want to find out more about this, there's two terrific books about this. One by Donna Jackson Nakazawa, Childhood Disrupted, How Your Biography Becomes Your Biology and How You Can Heal. And the other by Bessel van de Cloak, The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body and Healing of Trauma. Both of them do a great job in further delving into what happens to the body. Toxic stress can turn genes on or off, the things that regulate our bodies. And these changes can be transferred from parent to child. The area of research that looks into our interaction with people, organization, systems, and communities around us can change our genes. And this is called epigenetics. Some of you have heard about the little telomeres at the end of your genetic coding that keeps your genes in good order. Well, those get shorter and shorter the more stress that you're exposed to. It's also referred to as historical trauma or generational trauma. That's the fourth part of ACEs science. Historical trauma is captured in this graphic that RISE put together. RISE is an organization in Richmond that works with youth. And they added 2 layers to the ACE pyramid. This one on your left, the ACE pyramid, shows how adverse childhood experiences or trauma lead to social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. This can lead to the adoption of unhealthy behaviors, then to disease, disability, and social problems, and then early death. It has been projected that those with 6 or more ACEs live 20 years less than people without with 6 or less ACEs without intervention. RISE also added a base of historical trauma that is embedded in a culture as well as in individuals, and another layer of social conditions. You can see that on the right. Then it used different language to describe the same outcomes. The layer of ACEs and the complex trauma leading to the allostatic load and disrupted neurological development. The brain just doesn't work the right way. This can lead people to using coping behaviors with the resulting burden of disease, distress, criminalization, and stigmatization and early death. So the one on the right, the original adverse childhood experiences, the one on the left, including historical trauma. This is just one image of what historical trauma looks like. These American Indian children were taken from their parents to attend the Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania around the 1900s. This was common practice at the time, considered historical trauma. And here's another example that also permeates our culture, so that we are blinded to a system in which a public policy, institutional practice, cultural representation, and other norms work in various, often reinforcing ways to perpetuate racial group inequity. It identifies dimensions of our history and culture that we have allowed privileges associated with whiteness and disadvantage associated with color to endure and adapt over time. Structural racism is not something that a few people or institutions choose to practice. Instead, it has been a feature of the social, economic, and political systems in which we all exist. Now, I'd like to put this all together for you with just this little clip. Here we go.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me, and sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems with school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I'm always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time, but now I'm just angry. Doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my aces. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hit half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer is probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hit my kids. I hit their mum too, until she left. So my kids have grown up with aces. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from Mum and Dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and Dad got help, the shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children and I've got a job. Most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ace-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ace-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced 1 ace as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more aces. If we stop aces, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer aces in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes in middle age. We all need to be ace aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters, and most importantly, parents. The more you know about aces, the more you can help stop children growing up with aces in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered aces, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered aces cope.
So I think that that was just a really good representation of putting it all together, all the things that we've learned today. And, you know, it seems like with all this bad news about how trauma hurts us, there really is some good news. Our brains are plastic, our bodies want to heal. We know a lot about how to increase individual resilience to reduce stress hormones in our bodies and our brains. We can meditate, exercise, get enough sleep, and eat well, have safe relationships. And with the medical, educational, and everyone's help, we can you know, get what we need. We can build resilient families. That's what we're doing out in the community. But we can't have resilient families without healthy organizations, healthy systems, and healthy communities. The frontier of resilience research lies in creating communities and systems that prevent childhood adversity and stop traumatizing already traumatized people. I don't know if you're aware that Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, the California Surgeon General, has pledged to decrease ACEs by 50% over the next decade. She has launched the ACEs Aware program, and Dr. Harris recognizes that in order to imagine a better world for our children, families, and communities, where we work together across the health, human services, education, and nonprofit sectors to prevent and address the impact of ACEs. and toxic stress. If you'd like to learn more, please check out her website at acesaware.org. And you can see all the areas that she's working in: mindfulness practices, physical activity, quality sleep, mental health. And we were so fortunate in Sacramento to receive a $3 million grant with Resilient Sacramento, SCOE, and River Cities Medical Group to really implement actions to help reduce ACEs in Sacramento. If you'd like to be part of that, just let me know. Okay. If you would like to join the movement, here's ACEs Connection is the parent organization. There's 55,000 members across the globe. In Sacramento, we have an organization called Resilient Sacramento, where we have over 290 members, all working together to spread the word about ACEs. And we're going to be launching the Sacramento County Network of Care on March 24th. Again, all this information will be in the Resilient Sacramento site. You can join both of these organizations for no cost. I'd love to hear if you have any questions. I know this was a lot of information in a short amount of time, but there's a lot more out there that can help you learn about ACEs. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Wendy. That was a wonderful presentation. ACE is a very complex topic, and you could actually be learning about ACEs for quite a long time. I, for one, did an ACEs training, and it was over 2 days long. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, and because of it, it did take a little bit longer than our scheduled time. So thank you so much for staying with us. As Wendy mentioned, if does anybody have any questions, please place them in the chat box and I'll convey the questions to Wendy and have her answer them. To start it off, we do have a question from Dr. Michael Huff. He asks, Wendy, can ACEs coping manifest as hypervigilance?
Definitely. And you see that especially in our, people that suffer from PTSD. Hypervigilance is one of the main symptoms. So yes, it can.
All right, great question, Dr. Huff. Anyone else have any questions they'd like to throw in the chat? All right. While you may be thinking up questions, I'm going to share screen once again and throw up a slide here that I want you all to be aware of. And I'm also going to throw up a super quick poll if you can indulge me in answering this quick one question poll. Did you learn something new about ACEs and resiliency during the session? All right, the yeses are coming in hot and fast, Wendy. So just once again, showing that you gave a great presentation and folks were able to learn a little bit more about ACEs. I'll leave it open for a couple more seconds. But while I do so, want to announce that we really are appreciative of you joining us today, but please come back and join us for future sessions. Those are the dates there. The sessions will take place every other month on the second Friday of that particular month, and it will happen from 9:30 to 10. But we recognize that that time is not perfect for everybody. So we will always record our sessions, and we will make those sessions available on the Sacramento Promise Zone Facebook page, also the Sacramento Promise Zone YouTube channel. So please check those out. We'll send out notifications, so hopefully you all will get that. But even if you don't get a notification, you can go right to those pages, the YouTube and the Facebook, and you can share it with friends, family, colleagues, anyone you like, so they can be aware of ACEs and maybe take advantage of the website so they can go and learn their ACEs scores. I encourage everyone to go do that because it really is enlightening and informative once you take the quick ACEs and resiliency test. And we really want you to come back for future sessions because we have some great topics that are potential topics. They are to be determined, but they're kind of already determined because we've polled our community, we've polled our partners, and stress management, mindfulness, social determinants, memory function, bullying prevention, exercise, first aid, healthy eating, and so much more are potential topics. So we got something for everyone. So please come on back and check us out. And I'm going to end the poll. And once again, Julius Austin, love for you to follow the Sacramento Promise Zone Facebook page. It's a great one-stop shop to find out about lots of free and low-cost resources from hundreds of partners across every sector: health, education, job opportunities, housing, all kinds of things. So please check it out, and more importantly, share that with the people that you serve. We know that during the pandemic and beyond, folks are in need of all kinds of resources. And so we want to make sure that people are aware and get those things. So please check it out, share. And once again, thank you so much for joining us. Let me just check the chat really quickly.
And
All right, couple questions before we go. Wendy, what can individuals do to build resilience in adulthood?
I think that when you look at what the Surgeon General has proposed for building resilience, I'm just pulling it up here. Access to nature, spending time in nature, mindfulness practices, physical activity, nutrition, quality sleep, supportive relationships, and mental health care if you need it. And that doesn't mean, that could be being in a drumming circle, those kinds of things. Those would all be part of building resilience. Those are all stress busters.
All right, thank you so much. I think we had one more question. It was, how can I find information about the resilience score?
And can you can you pull up that slide, Julius? The very first slide is the ACEs too high. Let me see if I can get in there.
Let's see. Is it
it is the
the ACEs connection, or
HTTPS aces2high.com/got your ACE score. And that
Could
will
you put that
Okay.
in the chat?
one moment, let me throw up that slide, and then also if Wendy, if you can put it in the chat, that would be helpful. But here is the slide here, and here is that website. So aces2high.com/got-yours-ace-score.
I'll put that in the chat right now.
And then a question just came in about, does Resilient SAC have volunteer opportunities?
Always.
So email Wendy. Her email is in the chat if you are interested in learning more about Resilient SAC and any opportunities connected.
Also, if you think of any questions that you might have, my contact information is in the chat, and you can email me at any time at jaustin@shra.org, or feel free to give me a call even at 916-449-6212. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alice, for being a great partner. Thank you so much, Wendy, for being an awesome presenter. And thank all of you participants for joining us and staying with us late. We really appreciate you. So this is now the end of the session. You may leave at your leisure, but I'm going to stay on in case people want to scroll through the chat and jot down any information. And I'll leave this slide up as well in case people want to steal the website to go and take your ACEs and resilience screening and test so you know your scores. Once again, that's something I encourage everyone to do. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone have a wonderful day and a great weekend.
Onward and upward. Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
great
Alex,
job.
for this opportunity. I hope this is what you guys wanted. So
Awesome. I thought you did a phenomenal job. I thought this was just great. So for our launch, we couldn't have asked for anything better because it does set the foundation for the rest of the series, Wendy.
Great. Okay. Alrighty, guys.
Right.
I'm gonna go enjoy the sunshine. It's part
Yes.
All right, please
Thanks
do.
again, Wendy.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
All right. Okay, Julius.
All right, take
Awesome.
care, Alice.
All right, we'll be in-
I'll stay on in case anyone has any questions or thoughts.
All right. I have to get to another meeting. Sorry.
Understandable. Understandable.
we'll be in
Please take
touch.
off. Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
I'll
Great
reach out.
job. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, we have some folks who are still here. Maybe you stepped away, but if you haven't and you have any questions or thoughts or anything, please feel free to chime in. You can even unmute yourself or use the chat box. All right, I'm going to give about 1 more minute and then I will end the session if I don't hear from anyone. Once again, thank you all for joining us. All right, not hearing from anyone. Thank you once again for joining us. Have a great weekend.